In 1928, Vladimir Propp, a Russian folklorist, conducted an investigation where he studied hundreds of stories. Propp discovered that every story had 7 character roles or archetypes. For example, every story will have a hero and every story will have a princess, or at least a character that serves the same purpose as each role. Although almost 100 years old, Propp's character theory remains renowned for its accuracy as it still applies to almost all stories today. So let's stretch this theory to its limits by applying them to characters from the unstable SMP. Now, to clarify, a character doesn't need to be, for example, a literal princess to match the princess archetype. They just need to match the general role or purpose. In this case, the princess character would be someone who's vulnerable and needs to be rescued often, so not necessarily a literal princess. Now, we'll go over more on what each of these roles actually mean as we get to each one. Okay, so let's start with the first archetype, the most well-known one, the hero. The archetypes are going to get more and more obscure as the video progresses. I think the unstable character that matches the hero archetype the most is easily PARROT. Personally, on surface level, PARROT is simply just a hero. Whether that's helping save the server via his role in the destruction of the mafia, or his ambitions to help players struggling with poverty, even demanding flamefrags returns a random shopkeeper's enchanted golden apple, despite PARROT not having any connections to the shopkeeper.
Oh, yoink!
Oh. Hey, give my sword back.
You just burned his golden apple.
Bro's honor is actually maxed out. He's overall just a good guy. The hero archetype is often brave, resilient, risk-taking, and stubborn, all of which match PARROT's character. PARROT's braveness and resilience can be seen in his determination to make the server a better place, and his risk-taking and stubborn side can be seen in him doing risky plans even against his teammates' wishes. Now, PARROT's our hero, but who's our villain? Which is going to be our next archetype. Now, for the villain, there are 2 obvious characters, and those are of course ashgoo and Lettuce K, both of which have been main antagonists of the server. Lettuce is definitely a villain, but he actually has some positive intentions. He just executes them in bad ways. Don't get me wrong, he manipulates, lies, and kills people, but so does ashgoo. The only difference is ashgoo does all of this with the goal of power and wealth. Ashgoo's mafia ended just under a year ago, and the server is still facing repercussions in the form of nationwide poverty and famine, and thousands of players trying to adjust after the death of their friends and family, or facing backlash for being in the mafia themselves. This overall outranks the law's impact massively. I know the law technically hasn't been in full effect yet, but still. Similarly to PARROT, ashgoo is a textbook villain with his aggression and ruthless personality, both of which are common attributes of the villain archetype, making him fit much smoother than Lettuce, whose increased theft makes him more fit for other roles. Plus, ashgoo got defeated by the heroes, meaning he sort of has to be the villain. Okay, so we've discussed 2 pretty surface level archetypes, so diving a little deeper, we have the anti-hero, or sometimes referred to as the false hero. An anti-hero is a manipulator. Well, there are plenty of manipulators on unstable, but there aren't as many that match the qualities of being deceptive, self-centered, insecure, and sly. So who is our anti-hero that matches these personality traits? I think a great fit would be Spoke. Spoke constantly lies and manipulates people, not just random people, his friends. His self-centeredness can be seen when he tries to blow up Capital City because his best friend Mapic went missing. Even though almost everyone on the server has lost friends and they don't do tax on the most popular area on the server.
I've been around on this server just as long as you have, Spoke. I've gone through just as many things as you have. And to think that you're the only one who's lost one of their friends is just not true.
He's insecure about Jamato, which can be seen by him disguising himself and attacking his friends to make them think they're not safe just so they leave Jamato, completely disregarding the fact that Jamato saved their lives. And Spoke's slyness can be seen in him constantly just trolling players for fun, but something we're forgetting is false heroes are a type of hero at the end of the day. I mean, it's in the name. They do have some good. And to say Spoke hasn't done anything good for the server would be a lie. He teamed up with the heroes to play a key role in destroying the mafia, and also just a typical rule in media, you're gonna root for the protagonist regardless of what they do. The recent film Marty Supreme shows this really well with a character like Marty Mauser. He's a terrible person, but he's the protagonist, so regardless you root for him. Very rarely is this not the case. So with that logic in mind, Spoke is one of the 4 protagonists, which means he automatically appeals to being a hero of sorts, a character who is rooted for regardless of his countless flaws, which secures his spot as the anti-hero.
No, it's Thursday, bro.
This next archetype was rough, this one of course being the princess. The princess is typically vulnerable and majority of the time passive. I was thinking of Town Cat aka Pilly, as he needed help from our hero PARROT, but the assistance was more about protecting his civilization as opposed to him needing help. So let's go to another choice. Now you could say Lomedy, as he even gives flamefrags his mace when he's saved, but his personality doesn't match the princess archetype in my opinion. So I think Eggchan would be a better fit for this role. He only sticks around Wemmbu as his lack of PvP skills makes him vulnerable, often relying on Wemmbu to protect him, even though he only really serves as moral support, and of course he constantly gets kidnapped, so he kind of has to be the princess. Now speaking of the princess, our next character archetype is the princess's father. Yeah, this archetype is definitely the most obscure yet. The princess's father is powerful and commanding, as in traditional fairy tales the princess's father would logically be the king. Now a character that meets those requirements is once again ashgoo, or actually I should say met those requirements. He's kinda poor now and we've already selected him for the villain archetype. So another person we could look at is the previously mentioned Letters K. He of course has power and wealth through lore, and he also has conflict with PARROT, having minor conflict with the hero is a typical aspect of this archetype. But unfortunately, with his character being so complex, his purpose strays too far away from the princess's father. So that leads me to select Reduns. He's controlling, which can be seen through the extortionate tax rates in Capital City, and the strict laws that the players have to abide. And notoriously, Reduns is greedy and rich. Just like Letters, he's also had some conflict with PARROT, and I feel like PARROT and Reduns' conflict is much more accurate to the hero and the princess's father's relationship, at least compared to him and Letters K. Okay, now we're moving on to an easier archetype. Character who's supportive and loyal to the protagonist. This one being the helper, or the sidekick. Now you could pick Wifies, but with his whole villain arc as the director, I would definitely say no. If it wasn't for him turning into a psycho girlfriend, Wifies would easily be the helper. Anyways, let's look at our other options. Eggchan, once again, an alright candidate, but he's more there for comedic effect as opposed to actual assistance, and plus we already have him as the princess archetype. So the other obvious characters to pick from are Lomedy, Mapic, and Theo. The sidekicks of the protagonist, if you will. Lomedy isn't very loyal to Flame, as he never sticks by his side and has threatened to snitch on him to the law multiple times, which definitely doesn't match the helper role. So it's between Theo and Mapic, and honestly it's a bit of a toss-up, but I think Theo helps PARROT more than Mapic helps Spoke. Like Mapic and Spoke work together, while Theo is like the muscle of PARROT's group. Best shown with Theo successfully holding his own in a 1v1 against Wemmbu, who was at the time the strongest player on the entire server, just to help with PARROT's plan. PARROT comes up with a mission and Theo is like his personal bouncer. This exemplifies being a helper much more than Mapic in my opinion, as Theo regularly goes along with PARROT's plans although he doesn't approve, highlighting his loyalty while Spoke and Mapic share motives. They're more of a duo. For our last archetype, we have the Donor, a character who's wise, knowledgeable, mysterious, and donates the character strong weapons / tools. Now who better to fit in this category than Jamato P, who I analyse a lot deeper in this video on screen. Well, Jamato P disappeared for over a year quite suddenly and has somehow access to complex exploits which nobody other than him have been able to reproduce. This intelligence is reinforced by him reading Spoke like a book. He knew Spoke would be behind him even though Spoke was invisible. He predicted Spoke would try and kill him, and most integral to this archetype, he of course donated these exploits to Spoke at the start of the server. Spoke's exploited armor, the exploited explosions, all powerful weapons, all gifted by Jamato. Spoke even said these weapons could have killed the mafia in seconds had Jamato donated him more exploits.
When I had nothing, you were there. You did give me this chestplate. You gave me a full armor. You taught me so much about this server. You opened my eyes to what this server could be. And then you took it away. Right when you showed me a vision of what it could have been, you took it away. Where were you during the Mafia? Where we could have wiped them out in a single day.
However, there's a character that we're all forgetting, and he arguably fits more into the Donor role than Jamato P, and that character is Old Man Lin. With him coming in clutch and giving Wemmbu the spear and Riptide Trident that helps him kill multiple lawmen, Lin definitely matches the category of being knowledgeable and mysterious, and him being old sort of gives him an Obi-Wan Kenobi vibe, especially after the fans pointing out how much inspiration Wemmbu has took from Star Wars for his newest arc, with the whole idea of them having to destroy a massive explosive weapon that can wipe out whole civilizations. But at the end of the day, this didn't change that Wemmbu lost the war for the Great Sea, and Lin has only appeared once, so I think Jamato is much more deserving of this archetype. Which character do you think matches each archetype? I replied to pretty much all of my comments, so you should definitely let me know. Since you watched to the end of this video, you probably enjoyed it. In that case, I think you'd benefit from subscribing and watching my other unstable video essays, which are on screen now. See you later.